Okay, so we're continuing on Sefer Kohelet, the book that was written by Salomon HaMelech, full of chokhmah, wisdom, advice, telling us all of his experiences, pretty much, many of his experiences in life, what he observed. Very, very, very special, very important Sefer that one can really benefit a lot if you really study it in depth. And that's what we're trying to do here. Anyway, we're holding in Perek Hey, chapter 5. Last time we spoke a little bit about promises, nedarim, how serious it is to make a neder. If you made a neder, a promise, be sure to keep it. Words are powerful. Words have weight. The power of speech is a special gift that mankind has to use for good, in good ways, including praising Hashem, giving thanks to Hashem. So we said that one has to be careful in how he uses his speech, not to abuse it, not to use it in the wrong way. And there are various examples of how one should not use his speech. But we spoke a little bit more about nedarim, because people do not realize how serious it is to make a promise and not keep it. Make a promise not necessarily to Hashem, even to your friend, your spouse, your child. You want to make sure you keep it. The consequences of not keeping promises are very, very serious. But there are times that you do want to make a promise, and we gave the example of nodrim be'et sarah, when you are in trouble. You're in trouble, you're going through a very difficult period in your life, and you say to yourself, or you say to Hashem, you speak to Him, you pray, if you get me out of this misery, out of this problem, I will do so and so. I commit myself to take upon myself to do something that I haven't been doing, that I should have been doing, of course. And you think about what it is, and sometimes that can tip the scale in our favor. When we make a neder be'et sarah, person doesn't have any children, person is going through a rough time, and it's not just mazal. It could be, like they say, a streak. When you have a streak of bad luck, it's not just one incident, then maybe it's a decree. Maybe there's something that one did wrong that Hashem is insinuating to him, get your act together. So a neder can sometimes be helpful. However, it is not the optimal way of dealing with the situations, because you have to remember what you promised. And it's serious if you don't remember, if you forget. So therefore, there are other ways that one can deal with difficult situations that he's going through. One of the problems, however, that sometimes gets people on their feet, in other words, it shakes them up a lot, is something that we call a bad dream. In other words, it's not a real experience that they went through, but they went through a bad dream. They've experienced a bad dream. And sometimes a reaction to a bad dream may be, you know what, maybe I should make a neder, or something. As we're going to see soon in the Sefer, there are many things in life that can scare us. You don't necessarily have to make a neder, a promise, to get out of it. There are other ways that are easier and perhaps even more beneficial for one to do than to make promises. Even though we said that promise is sometimes a good thing to do in certain situations, there are other ways that one can deal with it. So we're going to speak a little bit about dreams today, what they are, what the meaning behind them is, because that is what Salomon HaMelech is alluding to when he says as follows: Ki berov halomot v'havalim udvarim harbe ki et Elohim yira. If you read the pasuk literally, it doesn't really fit together, because he makes two very, very different kind of statements. The first half of the pasuk says that there are there's all kinds of dreams. Ki berov halomot, there are so many dreams that people have. V'havalim, and there's all kinds of vanities that are spoken to us, that are told to us by all kinds of experts, whether they're psychic, whether they're false prophets, all those gurus out there. That's what he's talking about when he says there's so many havalim too. Besides dreams that can scare you, there are havalim, all kinds of things that people hear about, including udvarim harbe, all kinds of other miscellaneous things, including superstitious beliefs that are, known to people. So they're not necessarily being communicated by a guru, by someone who claims that he knows things. They're looking at a crystal ball, the common denominator of these three, whether it's a dream or something being told to you by all these individuals who claim to have some sort of prophecy, which of course is false, or all the superstitious belief, all of these things tend to scare people. In other words, if people somehow believe these things, people are scared by dreams and by all these kinds of superstitious beliefs. And he says, Ki et Elohim yirah, you're just better off fearing God. So, he's making two statements. Number one, there are things that people are afraid of, and the right way to deal with them, this regular way, is not through a neder, but to give tzedakah. That's an easy one. In other words, tzedakah is always very powerful. You don't have to make a neder necessarily. To cancel a bad dream, for example, if the dream is in fact a bad decree, as we will soon see, then you can cancel it, or you can pray to cancel it, through giving tzedakah. As the rabbis tell us, Imra'ita halomot kashim, if you saw very, very difficult dreams, dreams that are like nightmarish, they bother you, you can't sleep, you just have a bad feeling, recurring on really terrible things, kfotz l'shlosha dvarim, jump to three things to be saved from them. What are they? Teshuvah, tefillah, and tzedakah. Right? Jump to repentance, to prayer, to charity. And in this way, you can hopefully cancel or annul the dreams. However, as the continuation of the Pasuk says, Ki et Elohim yirah, you're just better off always fearing God. When a Jew fears God, when God is supreme in his life, when he knows that this world is run by Hashem, he has no reason to fear. Because he puts his trust completely in him. He knows that everything is for his good. Everything comes or is controlled by Hashem, right? So why believe these things? Just turn to him directly. So this connection with God, this positive connection, this strong connection with Hashem, allays. You understand what the word allays mean? To allay, to calm. It tends to calm people down. People don't have fears. People today have a tremendous lack of bitachon b'Hashem. They have emunah, because they don't believe in the Big Bang. They don't believe in evolution. They have emunah, but on a very simplistic, basic level. They believe God created the world. But they don't have bitachon in him. A lot of people, even religious, great people, studious, scholars, bitachon, trust in him. You know, imagine, I told you, various examples of where bitachon really plays a major role. You have your business for 25 years, and all of a sudden somebody opens up competing business right across the street from you. What are you going to do? What are you going to say? How are you going to react? How are you going to feel? What do you say? What's the average person going to say or feel? The guy's taking away his parnasah. But is that true? Not if you have bitachon b'Hashem. Not if we've learned lessons of how parnasah works. How is parnasah controlled? How is parnasah dictated? People were taught, non-Jewish, of course, schools of thought, that depends on your PhD, depends on your college education. This is all baloney. Really, it's complete false. There's nothing more false than that. Parnasah has nothing to do with your PhD. It has nothing to do with going to college. Okay, and I've said this many times, and I need to say it for those who never heard it. You can have a guy coming off the plane now. He just landed out of Kermanshah. You know where that is? You know, there's no...
Not Isfahan.
No, not Isfahan. Isfahan, they have money. Yeah. They came from Kermanshah, he comes, and he doesn't know one word of English. And he's making money. Whatever he touches turns to gold. Every investment, wow. He flips it, he's making money. You know, you've met people like that, right? Then you have a guy who went to school for 8 years and he has a PhD and a master's in 2 different fields, and he's struggling. What are you going to say? He's lazy? No, he's not lazy. He's not smart? For sure he's not smart. He doesn't know the language. He knows the language very well. What's the problem? People don't know how to explain it. But there's a word called bacht. There's a word called kismet. I mean, there's a word called fate, destiny, luck, whatever you want to call it in whatever language, right? That controls these things. Have trust in Hashem. You know, He rules, He controls, He manages, He knows what He's doing. He puts people in certain mazalot and gives each one a unique mission, what he has to accomplish, and He's not going to make one more penny more than He needs to. And nobody will take away a penny that is coming to Him. A penny. Not a dollar, a penny not. Whatever is coming to you, you'll get. Whatever is not coming to you, you'll not get. And if you took what's not coming to you, it will be taken away from you. Maybe not right away, maybe a year, maybe 10 years down the road. And we'll talk a little bit about it soon, why things don't happen right away. They can happen 10 years down the road. And that's why we're confused. Oh, what does this have to do? I never did anything wrong. Yeah, you did 10 years ago, you forgot about it. Right? So anyway, everything is controlled from above. In order to believe that, you have to have bitachon, trust and faith in Hashem, that everything, is just not by coincidence. Nothing happens by chance. So here you're being told all kinds of silly stories by some guru or some, I don't know, somebody looking at the tarot cards and crystal ball gazing, and it has nothing to do with reality. The reality is that Hashem has a reason for everything, and if you fear Him, trust in Him, first of all, you won't be as concerned. You can always turn to Father, to Abba. Pray to Him. He can change things too for you. But it requires bitachon, not emunah. It requires bitachon that this works. Otherwise, why do people pray? It's not because it's a mitzvah. We actually pray because we believe He listens to us. That is the reason for the mitzvah. Remember, He listens. You turn to Him. Karov Hashem lechol korav lechol hashikru'uhu be'emet. Hashem is close to those who turn to Him earnestly, in earnest, truthfully, sincerely. He listens. People come and they rush through the prayer. Even though Hashem understands all the languages, even He understands those languages, but it's not spoken with the heart. So He doesn't really pay that much attention to it. You think He will compare that prayer to one who's pleading, begging, and crying and shedding tears? There's a big difference. Right? Big difference. So therefore, it requires bitachon in Hashem, and that is why He says, Ki et Elohim yirah. If you fear God, if you have that kind of a relationship, that kind of an attitude, then a lot of the concerns and fears that people have, you will not have. Now, in speaking about the one that is on people's mind from time to time, dreams, what are they all about? In other words, are they real? Because sometimes they're very, very scary. So, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about the dream. Not so much about gurus and all the other things that people are afraid of. Dreams, people, want to have a better understanding of what's really in a dream. Is it real? It's not real. What does it come to tell us? Should we ignore it? And so forth. So let's talk a little bit about it. What is a dream? Rabbis tell us that a dream, if it's true, most dreams are not, is a chad mishishim minevuah. It's 1/60th of prophecy. Prophecy is a very, very high level of communication with Hashem. Hashem gives you prophecy, not through an angel, directly. He sends you a fax or an email, whatever, but directly, clear. Not always clear, but very, very strong vision. So a halom emet, a real dream, is 1/60th. Comparing levels, halom is much less. But it's related or similar to prophecy if it's amiti. But most dreams are false. Most dreams are nothing. Shtuyot, nonsense. But what is it? Nevertheless, we still had a dream, so what is it if it's nothing? So this is the way it is explained in the Gemara and in other Sefarim as well, those that delve into the analysis or the composition of a dream, and this is what they came up with. There's basically 3 stages at night. The night is divided into 3 parts. Ashmorot, they're called in Hebrew. Ashmoret Rishonah, the first third of the night. Let's say you go to sleep at 10 o'clock and you wake up, 6. Okay? So somewhere between 10 and 12, or 10 and 12:30, will be Ashmoret Rishonah. If you have a dream on that first part of the night, it has to do with hirhurim, with thoughts that you may have had on that day or during the week, the week before. Thoughts. You thought of things. You observed certain things. You had certain experiences, with people that you've met. It is a very, very superficial type of a dream, because at that time of at night, when a person is just going to sleep, the mind is not clear. The mind is full of all kinds of, it's muddled. you may have just eaten dinner a couple hours ago, and as we're going to see in the second part, that also affects you. So that's the chemistry of the brain, the way it works, the way Hashem made it, is that it is a very powerful organ. It retains memories, facts, information. It has an incredible imagination. The brain. You can imagine yourself right now in Greenland. You've never been there before, but you can imagine it. You can even imagine walking in the moon. Yeah, you can imagine going to Mars. I mean, imagination is very powerful, right? And then there's creativity and all kinds of things that go along with imagination. So all of this is happening in this powerful organ called the brain. The scientists still don't know how to figure it out. They have been able to see different parts of the brain have different functions. But anyway, so in the first part of the night, you have all these hirhurim, all these thoughts that are coming to you. These dreams that come to you in the first part of the night are always false. Always. Because they are coming about as a result of not something really factual, not something prophetic. It is natural. For the brain, the body is resting, the physical body, the hands and the feet, and now everything in the imagination, memory is running wild, floating around, coming up, mixing up with all kinds of things. That's just the way it works. You have no control over it. You know, you may have some control over what you're thinking now, what you think later, because you sit down and you think. But during certain times of the night, you don't have control between what's going on there. It's a mishmash of everything. So it's all false. Don't pay attention to it. Second part of the night is wild. Wilder than the first. Second part of the night can come about as a result of fears and phobias. People who've gone through the Holocaust and who have gone through war, like in the Israeli army, or all kinds of very, very traumatic experiences. In the middle of the night, the second half, second third, they may have relapses of things that are in the back of their memories, not in the front. Long time, mixing in, they think the Gestapo is coming to pick them up if they went, all kinds of things that are all of a sudden, why now? We have Obama right now. No, not Franklin Roosevelt, we're not back in the night, but these guys have memories from way, way, way back that are there, not letting go of them, some of them even more than others. So in the middle of the night, they have all these fears and phobias. Middle of the night has also to do with one's temperament. If he's a depressive type of person, he's a happy kind of person, jolly. That's called mizgo shel ha'adam. Mizgo means his temperament. People, depending on their temperament, that will influence the nature of the dream. And then, of course, you have the wildest and the most unusual, and sometimes the scariest. That is a dream in the second third of the night that comes about through a shed, through a demon. Demons appear in our dream. There are special demons that just invade the dream. They appear as men, or sometimes as women, and they cause a lot of trouble sometimes. They sometimes like to pick on you, especially if you mess around with them, and especially if you're afraid of them. There's certain ones that like to pick on you. There's certain ones that will come into the dream because one has been doing things that are not good, are not clean. When one is involved in impurities or impure activities, he is opening a door for them. And their door is usually the middle of the night, second, third of the night. Those dreams, of course, are usually not true. I mean, it has nothing to do with something of a message, but they're very, very frightening. They can be frightening. And they can cause all kinds of problems. You wake up because of them. But you don't need to be afraid of them. If you say Kriyat Shema properly, you watch yourself not to do things that are impure. You have a kosher mezuzah on that door of where you're staying, so the chances are diminished that you will have these kind of dreams. But second part of the night is also false. In other words, they're not real. Then you have the third part of the night. Third part of the night is right before you wake up. So if we said the first one was 10 to 12, 12:30, the second one was between 12:30 and 2, 30 or 3, the last third of the night, right, between 3 and 6, more or less, right before you wake up. How do you know when you had a dream? If you wake up with it, you know you've had it at the end. If you don't wake up with it, it could have been the beginning or the middle. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't make a difference. We want to know more about the third one, because the third part of the night are the dreams that may contain some truth. And I say some because all dreams contain hevel, contains some hevel, some, as rabbis call it, teven v'kash, hay and straw. And you got to remove the impurities, right? There's a lot of stuff that doesn't really relate to anything, and it's just in the dream. It's like seeing a big scene, a panoramic scene, and you're amazed, or you should be amazed by one particular detail, but there's so many other things to see. So one is distracted. So you have teven and kash, right? So you have to be able to filter it out to see, this is nonsense, and only this one detail is important to me. Now, of course, not everybody's an expert in figuring that out, and that is what we used to have in the past, pitronot, or potrei chalomot, people who used to interpret dreams. And sometimes that would be something that you may want to do, is consult with somebody. What is the meaning of this? And it's hard to figure out, unless you can figure it out on your own. Now, so this third part of the night, only the third one, contains some truth, but it still contains a lot of untruths. And one will see more or less clarity depending on the level of his neshama. The higher the level of the neshama, the better the person is, the more mitzvot he does, and so forth. He has more clarity than those who don't. He's able to see clearer. And in this part of the night, the chalom that is emet is not always a message. People think, it's a true dream. Okay, so what? It's not something prophetic necessarily. It's not necessarily a message. What else could it be? There's various kinds of true dreams. One true dream can be a future vision of something in the future. Many times that's the case, because we have a tradition that any significant event in one's life will always be recorded in a dream. But we forget most of our dreams. So therefore, down the road, 10 years down the road, when you experience it, wait a minute, where did I see this before? I've been here, I've seen this, as they call it déjà vu, right? Déjà vu could either be a past reincarnation, but more likely than not, it's something that you saw in a dream that you totally forgot about 10 or 20 years ago. Because major events in our life are always observed first before they come in a dream, but we forget about it. It's like the dream lets you know, this is going to happen, who knows how many years later. Later in your life, it could be 10, 20 years or more. And then when you see it, wait a minute, this looks familiar. A familiar scene. And that was seen once upon a time in a dream. So, is this true? Yes, it is. Is it prophetic? Yes, because it's telling you something about the future. Is it a big deal? No. It's not necessarily a big deal, because what are you going to do about it? It's just telling you information. The mind, through the neshama, of course, through HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has a optic, whatever you want to call it,
Connection.
a connection, a cable, those cables. What do you call those cables?
Fiberglass.
Fiber optic.
Fiber optics.
Whatever you want to call it. It's wireless, actually. No cables. That we receive. We are receptive to information, and that information is sometimes futuristic. Another kind of dream that has some truth to it is le'orer et adam. It has nothing to do with the future. It comes to shake people up. He's obviously doing something wrong, and there could be a parent or a grandparent who feels bad for their son and grandson. The parent, grandparent are up there already. How do we wake this guy up? How do we tell him that he's wrong or she's not doing the right thing? Sometimes, not all the times, it happens to a dream. Other times it happens in real life, some event that wakes up the people. From time to time, Hashem does wake up people, especially Jews. We are His children. Those who have a more sensitive neshama, those who have some reason of why they're closer to Hashem, they're more elevated, their neshama is elevated, or because of a merit, a zchut avot, Hashem may get more involved in their life because Hashem doesn't want them to get lost, assimilated, and forgotten. So He may send them a powerful message, and that powerful message can, and many times does, come through dreams. Wake up! Why are you sleeping? As the Selichot of the Sfaradim say, Malecha nirdam. Right? What are you asleep? Get up and do teshuvah and call out to Hashem before it's too late. So there's no doubt that some dreams in the early morning, and they may come in the middle of the day too if you take a nap, depending on what it's about, to awaken a person. Another type of dream that is also emet, or has some emet in it, is when you see somebody who passed away. All of a sudden you see a familiar face, and they passed away. Now what's interesting about these dreams is that sometimes we know that they passed away and we're surprised. What are you doing here? Right? And sometimes we forget that they passed away. When we forget that they passed away, it's usually memories. If in the dream we're not thinking, oh, it's nice to see you, tell me, how are things up there? Chubeh? Right? Yeah. How are things? In other words, sometimes, by the way, we don't smile. We're actually afraid to see them in a dream. We're frightened, and that is why many times a niftar, one who passed away, who needs to come in a dream, which, by the way, they need permission to do that. They can't do it on their own. When they come, they don't come to you directly if they knew you're going to be afraid. They may come to your sister, to your cousin. Go tell him or her this message. Why don't you go to them directly? One reason is because they may be afraid. They can't handle the dream. There are other explanations of why they don't go directly. I don't want to get into that right now. But one reason is that they may be afraid. So a niftar, a person who passed away that is seen in a dream, may contain a message. What's the message? The message could be without any words being spoken. He appears to you, and if it's a man, it could be if your wife is pregnant, he wants his name given. If it's a woman, you're having a girl, not you, your wife, or whatever, and maybe she wants her name given. That could be that simple meaning of some of these dreams. It's right before a birth, it's mazal tov. They may smile, they may not say a word, they may say something. It all depends on, of course, all kinds of things. If you merit to hear them, if they are given permission to speak. Otherwise, not all the time will they speak to you. Remember, a great deal of this has to do with not interfering with free will. Hashem does not want people to lose their free will. If everything is clear to them, oh, there is Olam Haba. Oh, the Neshama can. Oh, I better be careful because look what's happening to him. Or then it would interfere with our free will. We have to have pure free will to do right and wrong. So Hashem does not make it too obvious to us that the Torah is emet, even though we know it is. So a halom in the third part of the night can be emet also as a result of a niftar coming, but just remember this, many, many times seeing a person who passed away is just memories. More likely than not, it's memories. Very, very rarely will they come. If you're lucky, maybe once in 5 or 10 years will you see somebody who passed away who really, that chalom and that his appearance in the dream is meaningful and truthful. Yeah, 5 to 10 years. You can take a survey of people whose parents passed away and ask them, when was the last time you saw a parent? Oh, one may say, I've never seen my mother or my father. One may say, well, I saw them a long time ago, but ever since I didn't see them. Or, yeah, occasionally. Most people will not see it too often. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for it. They are in their resting place, hopefully, not in Gehenom, hopefully in their final resting place, and there's no reason to communicate. On the contrary, Hashem does not want them to communicate. They need permission to communicate. So if you do see it, more likely than not, they are memories, and you will see them doing something. When can you suspect that there's something behind their appearance? They're doing nothing, and they're not speaking to you, and they're looking directly at you. Either from the corner of a room, or sitting down, no communication. Unless, of course, there needs to be communication. There have been dreams where the father, the man says, directly to the child, you shame me. You shame me. You don't say Kaddish for me. You do this. There have been times when the person was a big tzaddik, they gave him permission to tell his son, how do you do this? Right? There are many stories, but I don't want to get too much off the topic. Many stories, and I have a whole lecture about dreams, of many kinds of dreams where you actually see the veracity or the nature of the dream. When a man tells his wife who was crying to him in the grave, you didn't leave me instructions, where's the money? Where are the will? The house. They claim it's their home. I know it's our home. Don't you have a deed? Where'd you put the deed? It's important today. We have a hall of records. In those days, 100 years ago in Iran, was there a hall of records? How did you know a house belonged to you? What was the proof a house belonged to you? Maybe you can shed some light on that.
Just by the fact of living in there.
What if you left it and you went to America for 3 months?
Somebody gets in there.
That's it? How do you kick him out?
Everybody
Can you
knew,
prove
the
it?
neighbors knew who owned
That's
it.
the only way?
Yeah.
In Iraq, they did have papers. There was papers, signed. There was some proof, but there was no. You have to keep it in the safe. I guess different countries did it differently. So she begged him. She went to the grave. She was a righteous woman. He came to her in a dream and told her, "There's a false drawer underneath your wardrobe or whatever you call it, and you look underneath. You'll see, in the bottom." She never knew of that place, of that spot. He didn't tell her, didn't share the information. But at least, Baruch Hashem, he was able to come in the dream. She went and found it. Now you tell me, if there's no neshamot, how could this dream be a reality? If the neshama does not continue to exist, the guy is dead and gone forever, how does he come and tell her information that she never knew? Where did that come from? Thin air? That in itself is proof that the neshama continues to exist, to survive. Otherwise, what is he giving her information? Where from? Obviously, he's still around. So sometimes they can provide valuable information. Most of the time it doesn't happen. Not to interfere with free will. So, obviously it would all depend also on one's level. The higher a person is, the greater his neshama is, the more he may see. The more he may be able to find out. But he can't know everything either, because even the big tzaddik, they don't reveal to him everything. Chalamot, dreams that come back, that are recurring, the same dream more or less, is in itself proof that they are true. So that another way that you can know a dream is amiti, true, if it comes back several times, it's more or less the same kind of a dream. Every couple months or so, you see something. It could be, that's also true. However, let's not forget, Rov HaChalamot Shav Yidaberun, as the Pasuk says, most of the dreams are false. So, maybe 1%, 2%, occasionally, may have some truth to it. And even then, it's only some. The vast majority of the dream is just details, colors, backgrounds, and even though things are unusual, they don't make sense. It's, remember, imagination, temperament, all kinds of things mixing in this tremendous area called the brain that is capable of calculation, thinking, imagining, and producing, therefore, all kinds of dreams as well. The true dreams, because of our low level, compared to the levels of the big tzaddikim, always will come beremizah, even if it's a message. Remizah means it will be hinted. It will be told us indirectly. You will see 3 cups in a dream, and you pour into one and not all 3. I'll give you an example. You see 3 cups, okay? You put down 3 cups. You see yourself putting 3 cups down, and you pour only one, and you left the other 2 empty. You wake up. What does 3 cups mean? What does it mean that if I pour into one, I pour into the other? Who knows? It could be. I don't know. I guess if you're single, they presented you 3 women. One from Isfahan, one from Hamadan, and one from Tashan. I'm just giving you an example. 3 women, and you pour into one. What does that mean? Hopefully you marry one, not all 3. I don't know. Right? I don't know. I just give you an example. It could mean all kinds of things. You have to think about it. And that is what I mean by remizah. It's hinted. You have to feel, and it's amiti. But again, remember, this kind of dreams, even if they're emet, are not so common. Even if you wake up before, it wakes you up. It's not necessarily so true. It could be something that you may see in the future. It's not necessarily a message. It just be things that you may see in the future. And even those things are coming hinted. You see yourself flying in the air. That's something that many people see. You see yourself going up a ladder. There are books and there are gemarot that give us a traditional interpretation of some typical dreams. And it could be you're moving to a different location, you're changing jobs, you're going to see somebody you haven't seen in a long time. Nothing major. Just, they are messages of things that you, not messages, but visions of what you will see in the future or very, very soon, that you automatically see. Big deal. There's no reason to be too concerned unless you do see dreams that are traditionally bad news. A decree. And I'm not going to give you too many examples of that. I don't want to scare you, but maybe one. We have it, you see yourself losing your teeth. Okay? Especially one falling off. Not baby teeth. Adult teeth. That's not a traditionally good dream to have. And what is done for dreams that we know for sure are traditionally not a good sign is to give tzedakah or to fast. You can't fast, you give tzedakah. And hopefully, through the tzedakah or through the fast, we will cancel that dream. Because otherwise, why would they show it to you? If not to take it seriously and do something about it. We don't know always the reason of why this may happen, this particular thing that is about to happen. But we have to take action to, hopefully, cancel it if it's a bad decree. Tzedakah, fasting are traditional ways of canceling bad decrees. We will see a pasuk B'ezrat Hashem later on that says, "Elokim asa sheyire'u milefanav." Hashem sometimes does things to individuals so they should fear Him. So the Rabbi tells, what's an example? Chalom ra, a bad dream. Sometimes that's all it takes to get a person shaken for him to change course. Okay, before we go on to the next Pesukim, just want to remind you that even though our generation is in a lesser level, lower level than the past, we don't have prophets today, we don't have that much Ruach HaKodesh, even though there does exist that some righteous people have a level of divine inspiration. There's no doubt that our generation is not as spiritually high. And because of that, the communication is not as strong and clear as it has been in the past. Nevertheless, as the Pasuk says, B'chalom adaber bo. Hashem speaks to human beings through dreams. And it was that the dream has always remained one medium of communication that Hashem uses, even though it's low, it's 1/60th, remember, of prophecy. That medium of communication, of all kinds of communication, is still around, and from time to time Hashem uses it to communicate to us, either, of course, through a malach, an angel, through a niftar, or through visions that we see, that, of course, sometimes require interpretation. Yes?
Did you say demons appear as humans usually?
In a dream, usually the demons that appear in the dream are the ones that look like humans. There's different kinds of demons. Some look like a goat, very hairy, with with feet of a goat or a chicken. There are demons that are bald, that have no hair, that look very strange. A good number of demons look more animal than they look human, but there are quite a few that are very, very human looking. You couldn't tell the difference, and if you go to Melrose, you meet some of them. Yeah, they're walking around. It's hard to tell.
How do they appear in your dream?
Well, the one that is not so good is sometimes for men. They appear as women, and they try to seduce them. The men. So the man thinks he's meeting up with a nice woman, and he wants to have a relationship with her, and He wouldn't want to during the day because he's, obviously he's more aware of what is right and what is wrong. But in the dream, he loses sometimes control, and that is when they make you unclean in the dream. But that's what a wet dream is all about many times. Yeah.
What's the connection between demons and angels?
Demons usually, most demons are from the impurities. They're messengers of Hashem. There's all kinds of them, all kinds of missions that they have. But some of them invade our dreams. There's even one kind of a demon that stands, you're sleeping on your bed, and he comes over to you. You don't see him while you're sleeping, and he whispers something in your ear. And you hear it. So in subconscious, you hear it. Where is it coming from? He's whispering it into your ear. Occasionally, if you're very sensitive to pick up things, and you're by yourself, in your room, in your house, it may happen to you. Now, this is very, very rare. Really, you may hear a voice speaking to you, calling your name. Said, who just called my name? Very, very low key, very low frequency. Not like we hear, or like you hear my voice, very low frequency, like somebody just spoke into your brain. He called your name. And you say, what? Very, very, very low frequency. That could be a demon, that could be an angel too. It's hard to know where it's coming from. But these things happen. And in a dream, you don't always relate to it because they look like humans. And you say, sometimes they scare you, of course. They do certain things that scare you. But it depending on what a person was doing, they may or may not invade his dream. It's not always the case that they're going to be in your dream. The purer a person is, he avoids them altogether. They don't come to his dream. That is why I'm telling you, it's important to read Kriyat Shema properly with Kavanah, the whole thing. If you say the Vidu before you go to sleep, that's even better. If you wear tzitzit while you're asleep, you're almost completely safe. Anybody that goes to sleep with tzitzit on, a man, even though you're not obligated to at night when you sleep, it's a very good protection. It's segula from all kinds of this kind of dreams. Unless, of course, you're asking for trouble and you're doing things that you're not supposed to during the day, then they'll come, they won't care about your tzitzit. But you have mezuzah on that room, kosher mezuzah. You said Kriyat Shema properly. You have a tzitzit on you, you're pretty safe from these kind of dreams. There may be nightmares of other kind. But usually, you don't have to worry about it. As we said, the majority of dreams are nonsense anyway. Okay, let's go on to the next pesukim. אם עושק רש וגזל משפט וצדק תראה במדינה, אל תטמע על החפץ, כי גבוה מעל גבוה שומר וגבוהים עליהם. Another very puzzling pasuk. If you just translate the words, it doesn't really make so much sense. But this is what it means. אם עושק רש וגזל משפט וצדק. If you see poor fellows, poor people who are being robbed of their savings, losing money by con artists. That's Oshek Rash. Oshek Rash is not just plain gezel, highway robbery. It means people losing their money in all kinds of unusual ways, including con artists. People who worked hard for their money. He's a Rash. He's not a rich man. You see this happening. You see gezel mishpat vatzedek. You see that justice is not being held. It's being robbed. It's corrupted. Tireba Medina. You see a country where all this violence and this crime is rampant. And you're wondering, why is going on? How come Hashem is allowing them to have rain and prosperity and economies? Everything is so good. Al titma al-hafetz. Don't be so puzzled by this hafetz. In other words, the interest that Hashem has in preserving the status quo. We've seen this more than once before, where Shlomo Melech says, don't react too much in puzzlement, because I can assure you, he says, Ki gavoa me'al gavoa shomer. We have a shomer who's gavoa me'al gavoa, who's higher than everything else that you can imagine in the world, and he sees very well from his point where he is. And he's a shomer. He's watching, he's recording, and he knows what he's doing. And one day, ugvohim alehim. One day he's going to send gvohim. Gvohim means tall, but what that means is that he's going to send some shlichim, some messengers, that will take revenge, that will punish them, that will do justice to them. And that is what the rabbis tell us in different words. Harbe shlichim lamakom. In other words, he uses very poetic words and uses all kinds of other words, but the message is the same. Harbe shlichim lamakom. Hashem has many messages to carry out His mission, His will, and it may not happen right away. Hashem sometimes waits. Ad shesa'atam mitmalet, the rabbis tell us, until their bag is full of avonot. He lets them get away with it, but the bag is filling up, and once the bag is full, He destroys them. In other words, it could happen after 100 years or more, that a nation that has been doing all the terrible things, Hashem says, I'll wait. Maybe they'll do teshuvah. Hashem doesn't punish right away. With Am Yisrael, He doesn't wait, because He promised He will never destroy us. So therefore He has to get us every single time, injection, surgery, slap, every time, because He can't wait a lot for it to accumulate. Otherwise, Chas v'shalom, if it accumulates, it's terrible. But with Goyim He allows it sometimes. Don't be surprised, He says. There's a shomer, first of all, who's watching all of this. And at some point He has many shelichim, many messengers to carry out His will. Now, what's interesting is that the gezel that we may have observed is good sometimes. What do you mean sometimes? It's always good. There's nothing bad that happens. Somebody once was asked, how are things? Terrible. He says, don't say that. You're allowed to say it's bitter. Bitter? Maybe. Right? Like that's like those rore, right? Yeah? Those grapes?
Yes, the Kohelet.
Yeah? Gure or gure?
Kohelet.
Gure? Yeah.
Raw grain.
The raw one, the sour. So you can say it's bitter, but not bad. Why? Because nothing is bad that comes down from above. Nothing is bad. So say bitter. But it's bitter. The bitter sometimes is good. How is it good? Here's an interesting example. Somebody worked very, very hard. Very, very hard. Baruch Hashem was able to save up some money. Okay? And somebody came and stole that money from him. Sounds familiar? It happens, right? He worked hard for it. And he was so bitter about it that now he had to remake the money, so he went looking for another job. Where he was, at first, he was not so happy. He didn't have a good boss. He didn't have good work conditions. He had a difficult life. He struggled, but he made Baruch Hashem some money. Now comes along somebody that took it from him. As a result of all that frustration and bitterness, he went, looked for another job, which turned out to be much better than his first job. Had the money not been lost, he wouldn't have thought. He would have remained there, frustrated, upset at his boss, not happy. So this event, this incident, even though it's bittersweet, as they say. It forced him to look for a job somewhere else. He moved or he changed, and now he's happy. So this is the Tovah. So the rabbis tell us many, many times this is what happens. I mean, not all the time will somebody change jobs and change occupation, but many times this pill, this bitter pill, you will see the sweetness of it or the good that it will do for you very, very soon. Many times you don't see it. When you don't see the goodness of that bitter pill, it's because it's a tikkun. Tikkunim, we always go through tikkunim. Chas v'shalom, car accidents. Even if it's a fender bender, they call it. Right? Now your back hurts you. All of this is tikkunim. Assuming it's not your fault, of course. You were driving normally, and an old lady, whatever, went into you. All of this is tikkunim. Now, what's the tikkun for? We don't know always. Tikkunim happen all the time, and Hashem wants to clean us up, so He sends us tikkunim. So that is, of course, good. It's a kapara. That is why we say kapara avonot. But sometimes we see the goodness. Somebody missed his flight. Baruch Hashem. Because later on he heard the plane crashed. So you see the good of being delayed. You see the good of missing the plane. Sometimes you actually see how good it was, what you thought was no good. But many times we don't. Only later on, when we go upstairs, we see how all the times, all the things that we suffered from, the people hurt us, in the end it was for our good. Because if money that was taken away from you is really yours 100%, it will come back to you. And even if it doesn't come back to you, it cleanses. It's a very powerful detergent. If there were any sins from the past, you're now completely like a tzaddik, like a little baby that was clean. The skin is so shiny and so pure because so much was taken. You know what it is to lose $2 million for somebody who has that kind of money? $2 million cash, right? Or properties. It's a lot. It's a big bite. Even if you have a little bit left over. The more so if you don't have. It's a bite. But after it's taken, you say, well, Hashem, now at least the kapara is so strong that I'm completely clean. Just about, unless of course you murdered someone. If somebody murders, of course, $10 million will not do it. Because you can't murder you, especially if the guy left orphans. That needs a different kind of kapara. But many, many times Hashem prefers to take money away because it's easy. Money comes, money goes. But you know what it is if Hashem would have to physically clean us? What would you like? You have a choice. Kidney stones for the next 3 years. Not every day, of course. Chas v'shalom every day. Yeah, every so often, on the weekends. Kidney stones or $25,000. Of course, $25,000. You know how painful it is, kidney stones? I haven't had, but they tell me it's worse than pregnancy. Worse than giving birth, I mean. So Hashem says, I know what's better for you. I know what you can handle. You don't want the kidney stones. If you have the money, let me take the money. Right. Anyway, everything is good. Everything is for the good, but we don't see it always right away. Okay, let's go on. So Hashem does things here, Gavo mal Gavoa, He's on top of us. His mind is greater than us. We can't figure Him out, but we know He's a shomer. And at some point, those that are corrupt, those that are stealing, they won't get away with it. Hashem has many messengers. Do you know that a snake is a messenger? Somebody gets bitten by a rattlesnake? Unless you step on it intentionally, well, what do you expect? It's going to attack you. But an animal that attacks is always a shliach. A human being is not necessarily a shliach. A human being has free will. So be careful from dangerous human beings. You don't want to, be around certain parts of Los Angeles at 2 o'clock in the morning. Or any big city. But animals? A shark, a lion, a snake, a scorpion, or a black widow. You know what a black widow is? Not a woman who's a widow from her husband and she's black. A black widow is a kind of a spider. A brown recluse. These two spiders, the brown recluse and the black widow, have poison in them. Now, most adults can survive it, but little kids are in grave danger if they don't get the treatment right away. You think they were just laying around and they just came and bit them? It's in the Shamayim. And when something happens to a child, it's for the child and for the parent who is a parent over the child, because they have to take him to the hospital. They have to deal with this headache right now. It's for both. So it's not simple. Sting. Yeah, sting. Bees. As long as you're not taking the beehive. If you're asking for trouble. You're smoking, you're ruining your own lungs. I'm not talking about people that intentionally do things that are stupid, that are insane. You're minding your own business, and all of a sudden, a dog jumps on you, right? And scratches, bites, does whatever. Hashem Yishmor. Of course, nobody wants to go through it, but it's all in Hashemayim. So these are shlichim. These are all messengers. Hashem has all kinds of messengers. Some in human form that walk on 2, and some that walk on 4. Yeah, and there's demons, by the way, too, that don't walk, they fly. There's all kinds. A wasp, you know what a wasp is? Huh? It's a kind of a bee, yeah. Yeah. They come, you're sleeping, they come and they bite you. There's all kinds of things that bite. Some are bad, and some are not so bad, but they're still painful. These are all shlichim from Hashem. Okay, let's go on to the next pasuk. Speaking about shelichim, messengers, he goes on to say, "V'yitron eretz bakol hi melech lesadeh ne'avad." Another pasuk which is very, very puzzling. So that's why we have several interpretations of this pasuk. The words mean yitron eretz bakol hi. There is an advantage of land over everything. What does that mean? One pirush is that the land in itself is a shaliach from Hashem. In other words, through the land, Hashem can exact punishment. How? The land doesn't produce. Right? It's completely
Barren.
huh?
Barren?
Barren. In other words, no rain. The land doesn't produce. In other words, Yitron Eretz Bakolhu. In other words, there's an advantage, one of the best shlichim, one of the best ways to see the punishment of Hashem on a land, on a country, on a people, is through the weather, through the land. All of a sudden, Hashem cuts them up. Well, let's take a look at the news. How many tornadoes did you count in the past 45 days that you heard about? How many floods have you heard about? How many monsoons? Remember Australia? What happened to them? An entire chunk of that country. You know what's going on in North Dakota now? Major floods. We're not talking about a little bit of rain. You know, when the river spills over, I mean, we're talking about major damage to homes, displacement of people. It's so much pain, so much suffering. Now, we may not know the reasons, but we know that it's Mishamayim. It doesn't happen by itself because of El Niño and La Niña weather patterns. That's the important thing. It's not our responsibility to always figure out why things happen, especially when it doesn't relate to us directly. Because if it relates to us directly on a personal level, sometimes we're told, examine your deeds and try to figure out what you may need to correct. But when it happens to others in the world, we have to feel bad for them because they're human beings. But there's no escaping the fact that Hashem runs the world. Even though we don't see it, that's what we're told, that these things don't happen by themselves. People lose their lives, their belongings. Then obviously Hashem allowed for it. Why? Obviously there's a good reason for it. So the land is one of the better shelichim that Hashem uses, and quite often, to exact punishment. Including, these things are very bad, melech lesadeh ne'evad. A king may have to turn to his field. A king is dependent on his field. In other words, he's not going to be able to collect taxes. He's not going to have any food left. He's the king. In other words, he's dependent on the land as well. It transforms the king into a servant, into a slave. In other words, now he has to look for alternative ways of making a living. The second pirush, the second interpretation of this pasuk is Yitron Eretz Bakolhi. There's nothing extra in this world. Everything is Hashem created is for a purpose. There's nothing meyutar. Nothing extra. There's a nice mashal of an individual that once came to a motel that served food. And he tells him, please prepare my meal without any spices. And okay. He sits down. All of a sudden, he sees a servant bringing the grinders, and he sees them bringing spices. And he starts to run away from the place. So the owner went after him. What are you running away? Because I see you're going to be putting spice in my food, and I can't have spice in the food. He says, you're crazy. You think we only feed you? We only serve you? You're the only one that's going to have a meal here? There's other people who are going to have a meal too, and they do want spices. What happens in the big picture of life is that people sometimes think the world is only for them. And they can't figure out what's this for? This is not for you, sir. This is for something else, for somebody else, for an animal. Why did Hashem make coffee beans? Well, today people drink coffee, but it could be that 3,000 years ago somebody was amazed. Who needs this for? You take the bean, it doesn't taste like anything. It's bitter, if anything. He doesn't realize that if you grind it, you can make it into a very, very good drink. It has caffeine, keeps you awake, right? It has benefits. Everything in the world, just people haven't figured out. So what's this for? You think you're the only one here? You may not need it. There's a need, there's a use for it. You know how many herbs have all kinds of medicine? Aspirin, all these things, natural, right? Even teriyak, right? It's good for you, yeah?
Don't know.
Huh?
Ask him.
Yeah, I have to ask. Yeah. Good for you?
Keeps
How much?
Never smoke.
No?
It metabolizes, it keeps your blood pressure low.
Yeah, in Afghanistan, some of the mothers are giving it to their babies
Yeah,
to keep
yeah.
them calm. Now, of course, too much of any good thing is also not good. But there's a need and there's a reason for everything that Hashem created. Nothing is yitron, nothing is meyutar. Another interpretation, some say that it's talking about the actual work of the land. Agriculture is one of the best kinds of professions where you're self-reliant, where you grow your own food, where even a king has a need for land. Land is the best investment. And it's true. The rabbis do advise us to diversify. Don't put your eggs in one basket. A third in real estate, a third in cash, and a third in business. Diversify. Don't put everything in. Land has always been an attractive investment. Okay, and the last pasuk that we'll do tonight has to do with money. Shlomo Melech, one of his favorite topics is about the folly, the craziness that people have in pursuing money. And this is what he tells us. Ohev kesef, lo yizba kesef. Whoever loves money, and some people love money, will never be satisfied with money. They asked John Paul Getty, he was a big millionaire. Sir, how much is enough? He says, just a little more. Ohev kesef lo yizba, he will never be satisfied. The ta'ava, the desire for kesef, if a person really has it, strongly developed, that never stops. Rabbis tell us in different words, Misheyesh lo maneh, rotze matayim. You have 100, you want 200. You just made $100,000. I want another one. When are you going to stop? You're not going to stop. It's very difficult to stop. Ask a gambler that went to sit down in Las Vegas. None of you, chazu shalom, right? Put down his money, and he made money. Did he stop? No. He thinks, I'm going to make more. Eventually he loses what he made. As long as he doesn't lose more than what he made, then it's okay, right? But it's terrible. It's a terrible habit. The gambling, it's terrible. And people are addicted to it. They have no bitachon in God. They think they can make money through it. It's a sickness. Ohev kesef lo yizba kesef. Somebody has this weakness of love. He loves money. Money is a goal, not a means. It should be a means, but to him it's a goal. I want to acquire them. He will never be satisfied. A lot of these people will never stop. They will continue to work. For what? And then he says, Umi ohev behamon lo tevuah gam ze havel. And those who like having lots of something, and they don't take that lot of crop or money and use it to produce fruit, in this case, to produce mitzvot, and to give tzedakah, then what is all that money for? This money you can't use upstairs. Upstairs they don't accept euros, and they don't accept dollars, no sterling, and for sure no tumah. They don't accept it over there. What are you accumulating it for? So that's what he says. Okay, you have this problem, but umi ohev behamon lo tevuah. Lo tevuah. In other words, he doesn't want to take all that he has and not make tevuah from it, not make fruits. In this case, not make tzedakah from the money. Then what good is it? Take that which you have a lot of and produce something with it. Give tzedakah. If you don't, gam ze havel. He says it's ridiculous. It's so vain. It's so. What a shame. What a waste. If you have a problem, you love it. Okay, accumulate it, fine. But at least make something with it. Do something productive. You don't, it's hevel. Now, why is it hevel? Why is all this money hevel? The Midrash tells us that people sometimes are so crazy about money that when they see an opportunity, what they think is an opportunity, it will be a mirage to them. He says, imagine somebody going in the desert. What does he think? A person in the desert, where's water? And sometimes you see a mirage. A mirage is something natural that you see in the distance. You see a little pond or lake of water because it's shiny. In the contrast to the sand. And the humidity, the level of the humidity in the air, it produces this kinds of mirages. You know what a mirage, right? The eye sees.
Sarab. In Persian, it's called sarab.
Would it be at the end?
Sarab, yeah.
Sarab means mirage.
Okay. And it's false. It's a false image, false perception. So the guy said, okay. And he goes through all the high sand dunes. It's hard to get it. Toreach. He comes there and says, oh, it's nothing. Now he has to go all the way back where he came from and continue on his road, on his trip. All this tircha for nothing. Sometimes things shine, they appear promising, and it's kalam fadi, we say in Arabic. It's dvarim betelim. It's nothing with nothing. It's worthless, right? But because he has this mindset of more money is important, that he sees mirages. And that's all they are. It's a mirage. It's false. He will not always see true. He will not always see something that is a reality. And he will be disappointed, of course. All the years that he worked so hard, what came out of it? It's gone. In Mexico, they really tasted this with something called devaluation of the currency. Something that people who live in this country don't know. You know what it is? You have 1 million, the next morning you have $500,000? It's in the bank.
It's happening here too.
It's happening exactly here, but without people realizing it. Because now the dollar is not worth so much. What is it worth? The only reason people don't realize it because Baruch Hashem, you can still buy with that $1 a soda can or whatever it is. You can still buy what you could buy 5 years ago. There hasn't been so much inflation in certain items. In other items there has been. But it's happening, but you don't realize it. So there's a lot of mirages going on in the world, for those, especially for those people who that's all they're thinking about. Rabbis tell us that the ta'ava of kesef, the desire of money, for money, is like drinking salt water. Mayim meluchim. You know what happens when you drink salt water? You want to drink more. You're never going to be satiated. You're never going to.
A lot of soda, a lot more soda.
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah. Whenever you drink something salty, you're going to drink more. You're going to want more. You're never going to quench your thirst. So the person who really has the sickness of wanting more and more, it's not going to easily go away. There's a very interesting story with a student of the Chafetz Chaim. He approached his rabbi, Rabbi, can you please give me a blessing that I should be successful and wealthy, do well in my businesses? What do you want money for? He says, Abzat Hashem, if you give me this beracha and I make it, I'm going to give a lot of tzedakah. So his rabbi tells him, remember your promise, okay? Okay. Years later, I don't know if it was 5, 10 years later, they meet up again. The rabbi came to visit the town where his student was living. And this time the student came to him crying. What's wrong? What happened to you? He says, Rabbi, your blessing came true. Baruch Hashem, I made it. I have a lot of money. So what are you crying? He says, but my hands are closed. I used to give tzedakah when I didn't have all this money, and now I can't give even a little bit of tzedakah. So now I'm crying. So he calmed him down. He says, what do you think? That your money will grow and your Yetzer Hara will remain the same one as it was before? When your money grew, that Yetzer Hara that you once upon a time had, he grew with the money too. And now he won't let you give. People whose money grows, they have to remember their Yetzer Hara grows. And that is why it's one of the most difficult nisyonot, one of the most difficult challenges. The rabbi tells the nisayon of osher is more dangerous, more difficult than the nisayon of oni, of poverty. A poor man's heart is humble. He will pray. He'll feel terrible. A rich man will become arrogant. All people who were his friends are no longer his friends. He abuses, steps on people, makes fun of people. Very few who have lots of money are righteous, charitable. The majority are not. You look around. There are good people with money. There are. The vast majority who have tons of money are not so giving. They may give some, but not. They're not the majority. It's a very difficult nisayon. The Yetzer Hara grows with it. The problem is, of course, when a person is so focused in money that it molds all of his life. There's a beautiful story that is told in Midrash about 3 individuals. And with this we'll end. 3 individuals who had money with them, they were traveling, and they stopped at a place before Shabbat. What do you do with the money? There's no safe. So they all went and hid their money in some location, in the ground, and they remembered where they put it, so on Motzei Shabbat they can come pick it up. Great! When they all fell asleep, one of them got up, went to their location, and took all the money for himself and hid it somewhere else. Motzei Shabbat, they were looking for the money, and they couldn't find it. So they each one started blaming the other. You took my money, you took my money, you took... How do we find out the truth? So they went to Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo Melech was a wise king. He asked, how am I going to figure this one out? So he says, you know what, come back tomorrow. He thinks, and he came up with a plan. Tomorrow he says, listen, I have a big question to ask you that the king of Rome asked me. I want to see what you say. There was a young man and a young girl that loved each other very, very much. And they promised to each other that they will marry each other. One day, and they separated, each one went their way. The girl became engaged to someone else. And she says, listen, before I get married to you, I have to go ask Mechila from the one I promised. And she took herself a lot of money. And her husband and her future husband said, okay, fine. And she went and told her friend from the past, listen, here's the money, please forgive me, but I met someone else. He forgave her, took the money, that's it. On the way back, this girl was assaulted by bandits. And they took away her money, whatever she still had left. And the leader of the gang wanted to rape her. So she tells the leader of the gang, who was an older man, says, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Let me tell you my story. My future-to-be husband was able to control himself and to wait for the marriage until I went and asked forgiveness from this guy. He held himself back. And he's young, right? You're old. What do you need this for? And so somehow she was able to convince him to not touch her. And he gave her back the money. That was the story. So now Shlomo Melech asks them, tell me, who of all the stars here do you think is the greatest one? The girl, the older fellow, her husband. One guy says her future husband, that he held himself back and allowed her to go travel and ask forgiveness and to control your yetzer. Another one said, Kol hakavod, to the young woman, that she was able to not just break a promise, but to go and deal with her promise properly. She gets the greatest credit. She's the hero. And then the third guy says, no, the hero here is the guy, the older guy. He had all this money, and he could have taken it, and he just gave it up. So Shlomo Melech says, you're the thief. Give back the money, because that's all you're thinking about is about money. Otherwise, you wouldn't have thought it's him. In other words, the fact that you took the money means that all you think about is money. And that is why you thought he should take all the credit. He held himself back and didn't take the money. That's so difficult, right? Imagine if you had the money. Obviously, you didn't want to give it. You wouldn't give it up to, right? You see how Shlomo Melech was able to tie two and two together? A person that loves money talks about money. His whole life is about money. His whole life is directed by money and misguided by money. Everything is about money, and therefore he of course, will probably make a lot of mistakes. Rabbis tell us, "En adam met v'chatzi ta'avato biyado." A person will not leave this world with even a half of the ta'ava. We talked about ta'ava of kesef. Not even half. He will never leave this world even with half, having accomplished half of what he ever wanted. What's the meaning behind these words? Obviously, we said before, whoever loves money will never be satisfied. But there's something deeper over here. You know what ta'ava of kesef is all about, and why people are never completely happy? Because the way I explained it is that ta'ava of kesef is divided into two parts. One is the pursuit of the money, and the other one is the second half of the ta'ava is to spend it. You first want to get it. That is a ta'ava. And people sometimes break the law to do that. The second part of the ta'ava is to spend the money. People even who accumulate and are able to fulfill the first half of the ta'ava, to get their hands on the money, they never leave this world having accomplished the second one, is actually being able to enjoy the money, being able to spend it all. What a shame. Okay, you got it. It's a blessing. Baruch Hashem, you inherited it. Whatever, it makes no difference. How are you going to spend it all? So, what is Warren Buffett doing with his money?
Investing it.
No, but besides investing it, he's living very modestly, and he's not keeping it to himself.
Give it to Bill Gates.
What?
He gave it to Bill Gates to
Charity.
No, it's a charity.
Yeah.
Very simple man. He's not Jewish. But he has some common sense. Listen, I'm not going to take it, give it to Uncle Sam so they can bomb Afghanistan with it. I mean, every missile costs thousands of dollars. I mean, what for?
Hundreds.
Yeah, what for? Give it to people who really need it. That's called common sense. Common sense, of course, requires a person to stop and to think and to evaluate his actions. And unfortunately, people without too much learning and direction, the odds are against him that they will think to do the right thing. Unless you have a good nature, a good neshama. That is what Baruch Hashem we learn. With the Torah, this is able to direct us and able to guide us to what should be a priority, what we should pursue, what we should not pursue, what is important, what is not. Money is not important. Making big weddings is not important. Having a Lexus 2015 is for sure not important. They don't have 2015. Yeah, right, right. But people are still thinking of it. Yeah, they have to change cars. These are shtuyot, right? You have Baruch Hashem. If you are blessed, you want to preserve the blessing and transform the blessing into a blessing for other people. Make up a tzedakah. Write a will where this money will go to. Otherwise, it will not necessarily go to what you really wanted it to go. By that time, it's too late. Huh?
Better to give to charity while you're alive.
While you're alive, because when the children take it, they may decide to do something else with it. And Chaz v'shalom fight over it. So do the smart thing, invest it properly, and the best investment is not in the bank, stocks, or mutual funds. It's the investment for Olam Haba, for Olam HaEmet. And that, of course, involves giving it to tzedakah and doing other mitzvot and ma'asim tovim with the money. A person who does that is really a blessed person. Thank you.
Baruch.